You smell what the Rock is cooking.
Acknowledge me.
You don't know what hard times are, Daddy.
We are bad to the bone. Get it? Bad to the bone.
Tell me when I'm telling lies.
I'll fight anybody. Who do you want? Just let me fight him.
Let me tell you something, Jim Ross.
Mega power, yeah.
We got it for you.
We are the best of the best.
Woo! Wheeling dealing.
Smart marks.
And that's the bottom line, cause Stone Cold said so.
Welcome to Talk in the Building, a pro wrestling podcast where we focus specifically on the pro wrestling promo. We're unique like that, so join us for the ride where we talk about the talkers, we hype the hype man, and we pontificate upon the promo. I'm Adalid. You already know that I am here as a Lucha Libre fan, and I'm here joined by the homies. I'm joined by my friends Adrian and Greg from the ATL. Fellas, how we doing?
Good, man. How are you?
I'm good. I'm chilling. And, you know, we're enjoying ourselves. We're gainfully employed. And it is that time of year when there are some cuts. These post-WrestleMania cuts specifically, they almost happen on a schedule as it seems. And today we're going to be looking at a few promos as our subject matter is future endeavored, or how to make the best of a really terrible situation when you've had these great contracts and now you're left on your own to reinvent, to redefine, maybe to retry who you actually were. Because a lot of the wrestlers nowadays, maybe they didn't get a fair shake, right, wherever they were signed up. So in that vein, and thinking about what we think about pro wrestlers and the importance of the promo, because a lot of the times when we're talking about these releases, we're trying to figure out why. Was it were they not developing enough in their training? And who am I to say any of that, right? I'm not a pro wrestler, but our niche is the promo. And we know that in a lot of cases, that certainly wasn't a strong suit for several people, and maybe just something they never got quite the chance to develop in front of a live crowd. So I'm going to pose a question to start the night to you guys like this. Do you think that first post-WWE promo, that crucial promo to reestablish, is it more about proving something to the fans, or do you think it might be about settling a score with the company that maybe didn't give them the fair shot? Especially in some cases where, some wrestlers might think they were buried, maybe they were ignored, maybe they're trying to establish that new identity versus whatever the narrative was at their old company. Greg, I'm going to come at you first. What do you think about that first post, WWE promo in this case, because we're looking at this round of cuts?
I mean, personally, I can't stand it when they come out. Anybody. It doesn't matter if it's WWE, AEW, TNA. I don't care who it is. I can't stand it when they come out and blast their previous. Because they're not at the show they're at. Whatever show they are. I don't care if it's GCW. I don't care if they let's use these releases from WWE. I don't care if they're standing in an AEW ring, a TNA ring, a GCW ring, MLW, New Japan, wherever. They're not in that ring if it's not for the previous company. Let's call it what it is. Whether you're Braun, whether you're Cora, whoever you are, Shayna, anybody. So you don't have to stand up there and praise the previous. But I personally would rather hear from these people about what's next for them. What are they doing today? And what am I going to do going forward? That's my preference. Because if I happen to see, let's just use Braun Strowman. If I see him on an MLW, I'm curious, right? What are you going to do? Are you going to rely on being what you've been, which is fine? Are you going to be something different? Are you going to reinvent? Whatever. It intrigues me. I don't want to hear the bitching and complaining.
Fair point. And one that, I think we've talked about here a few times, but just in general, right? Just about having that line of dialogue, or that train of thought, so to speak. Great. Adrian, what do you think about that? What do you think about that importance of that first post-release promo?
I think the first promo definitely should be setting the tone for your direction moving forward. I think in this day and age of social media, now that's where they normally set the tone. But once you're with a new company, you have that opportunity to reestablish your direction. You could have been,
Yeah.
let's say, you could have been enhancement talent in a company and never really given that opportunity to be one of the top guys. But because you went about social media the right way, doing little podcasts here or there, good PR, now there's a buzz behind you. And I'm talking guys like what was my guy Ty Dillinger is an example, like where he was always an enhancement talent. NXT, he was never really the chosen guy. Got fired or got released, went to AEW, and a lot of us championed the guy because we were like, hey, we like this guy. He doesn't seem like a tool bag, so we're gonna get behind him. And they gave him that little push of being the heel against Cody or whatnot, and it was cool. And that's the right approach post whatever company you go for. Now, I agree with Greg to a point where I don't particularly care for the first promo to blast your previous employer, but in some cases, I kind of do want that because some of the talent have been disrespected to a point where that they can use that disrespect to embolden more fans behind them. And even though it's one of those things where it's like, they're crying, they're complaining, that's a majority of us on the IWC. let's be honest. That's a majority of us podcasters. We cry, we complain. Why is it that?
No, we don't.
Oh my God! After these most recent WWE releases, it really showed me how much people fake the funk, in my opinion, when it comes to supporting talent. Because I've saw so many tweets. I saw so many people saying, why is this person released? This is crazy. Da da da. Dude, they work for that company. They worked for WWE for over a decade. How much money did they make? How much opportunity to be on television, to have toys, merchandise, all of that stuff, things that none of us will ever touch or see. Things that so many independent wrestlers will never be able to touch. This is a blessing that they were in that opportunity. Yeah. But because we don't like this company, now we're fully behind this person. So that's that weird little, in some cases, I kind of do want to see someone that got cut from WWE give hell to WWE, because that'll get these people riled up behind them. It may not be long lasting, but it's a buzz. And in this day in pro wrestling, that's what they want, is a quick buzz.
The approach I would love to see, as opposed to blasting WWE, is them blast IWC by saying, oh, you celebrated Roxanne Perez when she got called up. You celebrated Tiffany when she got called up. So when these people get called up, you are the cause for me being released, because somebody had to make room, and because somebody's spot had to get taken. You, IWC, you fans are the ones who pushed for them and pushed me out. Because at the end of the day, that's what we do. We celebrate these NXT call-ups. We celebrate these Evolve call-ups, or whatever it is. All these call-ups. Oh, man, look at this. Here's Penta. Here's Phoenix. We love it.
Yeah.
But they're taking TV time away from somebody.
For sure. Yeah.
And it happens in every other company. These releases are going to go other places, and they're going to take TV time away from somebody. That's just the evolution of the business. And I don't mean just wrestling business. That's business. And, I mean, I would love to see that promo, as opposed to them just blasting WWE, because it is what it is. It's a cycle, right? But what if they came out and just went off on the fans? And it's speaking the truth.
Yeah.
Well, I'll do an extension of that, because we're talking business now, right? And we're talking about these missed opportunities, essentially, right? You had this new crop of signees. A lot of them went immediately to the main roster. There were some injuries there with some of the younger, like Cora Jade. She was injured for a little bit. Dakota Kai. She had those multiple injuries, so that plays its role as well. But ultimately, there's only so many spots, right? We always complain this person is getting the shot, this person isn't getting airtime. What do you say to the recently released wrestler? Right, I'm thinking most recently. I don't think it was released. I think it was contract ended, but like a Ricochet, where honestly nobody gave him a fair chance. It was like, well, you should have stayed there. You were on top. You were in the main company, and now we're seeing this guy flourish. It took a minute, right? But he's finding a character. He's finding a personality that he never had in WWE, right? That's just one example. What do you say to these newly released talent, especially those that have been on a long-term contract, that have never been on the indies in any recent memory? From a business standpoint, what do they need to do to outlast and outshine in a really bloated environment on the indies right now, where everybody's trying to be seen? I'm gonna come at you with that question, Adrian.
Well, my number one bit of advice is to really engage with the fans initially through social media. Pick and choose which podcasts you actually involve yourself with, because some are the wrong crowd, honestly, and some associations may kill future opportunities for you. And my last piece, and I hate to say it, but like, don't burn that WWE bridge. That's the biggest. Yeah. And I think we're more so talking about these WWE releases. So I can go ahead and say it, man. Don't burn that WWE bridge, because those guys always spin the block on you, especially if you get a buzz and do your thing and reestablish yourself. They're going to bring you back in. As simple as that. And if not, AEW is more than willing to pay a healthy amount for you to be in their company. So I wouldn't burn any bridge, or I would say just reestablish yourself in the indies, definitely on social media. Whether you're reestablishing a character, recreating yourself as a character. Somebody like Matt Cardona is a perfect example of how to handle being released. And, just the way that he has gone about reinventing himself while also paying homage to or acknowledging his past without disrespecting any previous stops that he's been in. I think he's been one of the best examples. And honestly, on the back end, I'm going to shoot him some love, because I know that IWC always craps on the guy. Top Dollar. Top Dollar, as of late, has done a really, really good job of, reestablishing himself as a professional wrestler. I think at first, when he, once he got cut by WWE, it wasn't as easy of a transition for him, because, his in-ring is not the best. He's a smart guy. Let's not make any mistake about it. He's a very intelligent guy. But in the wrestling business, I think he shook a couple too many trees the wrong way. And that kind of made things shaky at first. But I think he's reestablished himself as a talent in the professional industry, a professional wrestling industry. And I can honestly see WWE giving him another shot based on what he's been doing in TNA and a lot of these indie shows. I personally have seen him a part of 3 or 4 indie shows, 2 of which here in Atlanta, where he was a professional. He did his job. He did what he had to do. He took care of business. He drew a crowd, which is what the promoters want. And, he didn't look that bad. So I just think those are 2 examples for me of guys that you need to be following the lead of.
Right. All right. Greg, do you follow that thought of reinvention while still keeping that door open and knowing that you have a path. Everyone has a path to get back,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, I think the key is the blueprint. You hear the blueprint's been out there. Cody started it, and then you have
Definitely. Yeah.
Cardona. I said, but the blueprint's been there long ago.
Mm.
It's the territory blueprint.
Yeah.
I can't get over. They talked about, let's use JYD. If you ever go back and listen to that story, they sent him to learn how to work as Sylvester doing whatever he did, and then brought him back to Mid South as the junkyard dog.
Mm.
And now all of a sudden he's like, oh, whoa, he's a big star. What happened? He went and found himself. Kamala had the same thing. He was sweet brown sugar or something like that, and he did his thing. Then they brought him into Tennessee, made him Kamala, and boom. So
Mm.
these guys go out and learn a new hold, and they come back if that's what you want to do. And I think that's the key. If I were to sit down with anybody, I would ask them, what do you want to do? Do you want to be a wrestler or do you not? I will use an example of somebody I personally spoke to, Gunner. When I sat down and talked to him, he's like, I don't see a path back. And that's cool. He was like, I tried, I got released. I'm doing these different things, and to me now it's time to move on. And he's in a new chapter of his life. He's a police officer. If you don't know, he went through the whole thing. He did a little small farewell tour on the Indies, and I had that conversation with him. He's like, "Nah, I'm good. I'm good." He still does some personal appearances, no matches,
Mm.
and and I have mad respect for that because he's like, "This is what I want to do." So key, figure out what you want to do, and then go for it, and then be selective as to what you do. Now, when I say selective, be careful of going to an AEW, signing a 5-year contract if you want to go to WWE back. You want to go back to WWE.
Yeah.
You gotta kind of balance that. If you're cool with that, go for it. But it's not always about the money today. It's about the money in the future.
Sure.
So I mean, and I think that's a key. And then going back to what you're saying about Top Dollar, because we do talk about the promo.
Mm-hmm.
I have a friend who booked Top Dollar, said he's the easiest dude in the world to work with, as professional as could be, as personal as could be. And what else did he do? He did promos on his social media
Mm-hmm.
for the show
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
There you
on a
go.
regular
Smart.
basis. He did not sit back and say, just pay me, I'll show up.
Right.
No, he promoted the hell out of the show through promos and social media posts. I watched Matt Hardy do that a few years ago when he was on the Indies. Another buddy of mine who helped run Bulletproof at the time, which was Luke Gallows' organization. He was wrestling for them. He did a promo. I saw it before my friend saw it. He was like, "How you see this already?" I said, "It's on his social media." So here's the thing: Matt Hardy's out there promoting it without even talking to the promoter about it, and which is cool, which is what you should be doing, right?
Right.
You're signed, you're sealed, you're going to be delivered. Do these things. Get out there, promote every single thing. To Adrian's point, get out there in front of the fans. Rebuild yourself.
Yeah.
Yep.
You have to figure out: do I reinvent or do I not? Like for me, if I was a Braun Strowman, I would try my best to reinvent myself as a monster attraction,
Mm.
an Abdullah, a
Yeah.
Bruiser Brody, a Vader type, like somebody that, and sell myself down the road, whether it's AEW or somebody else. Hey, let me come in 3 times a year. That's
Yeah.
it. Three
Well,
short programs. Let me be brought in, come in, do something dominant, and leave.
I was reading about Brian today, and they said something to the effect of his left side allegedly is like 15% paralyzed,
Oh man.
and
Poor dude.
and I hope this is the case. He's worked out a deal with WWE to work like on a 3-month basis, like here and there, spot duty essentially, because of his health. So I think that's pretty cool that they've renegotiated how they're going to utilize him. I don't know if that's true. I hope that's true,
Oh man.
especially based on his health. So
Yeah.
It's not like a Steiner situation where he has like that like dead leg or whatever it was, right?
we've all watched him move around, and it looked rough. It looked pretty rough. So I don't know, man. I hope he's okay. But if that report is true, that's pretty cool that they're at least working with him, saying we'll give you a 3-month contract to work a little situation, and then you can go sit down and relax for a bit
and kind of regenerate. Yeah, I mean, kudos to that dude, because that dude had a whole other career as like the strongman competitions. I mean, he was doing them here in LA for a little while, and I remember, that's brutal.
I'm sure that didn't help his knees at all.
Oh no.
I'm sure that didn't help. Yeah.
But speaking of him, real quick, I think the key for him, again, just my personal opinion, and from what we heard the last time he got released, he didn't do much last time, but apparently his price was really high, like stupid high, and he had down the indies a lot, if you remember, at one point.
Yeah.
So I think if he came out, he could play that heel where I hate being here, I don't want to be here. He could be that person, but understanding that, look, go out here, embrace these opportunities if you're healthy, embrace these opportunities, and understand that, man, these people can make you.
Definitely.
I mean, it's like I said, the blueprint's sitting there. Yeah. I mean, you think about the people who are sitting in WWE now who did reinvent themselves. I mean, so whether it's Cody, Drew, I mean, go back to Jinder. Jinder came back a different person.
Yeah.
You see people who are coming back all the time, and they're just like, man, they're just different. Even Spears, right? When he left as Ty Dillinger, he had the little gimmick of 10. He came back, and he had that a little bit because people were happy to see him, but all of a sudden he's just a different person.
Right.
And
it's a menace.
And it's just cool. I mean, it's cool to see them go reinvent themselves and come back.
I think you hit on that, and both of you hit it in different ways, but this idea of also understanding that the audience is forgiving, right? They'll ride with you. If you're willing to put in the character work, and like you said, do the social media, personalize the messages, right? Not wait till the promoter to contact you. Hey, record this, and you're recording it in your living room or your bedroom, and it looks like you don't really care to be there. That enthusiasm pays dividends, because let's be real, these superstars, these stars, they're built on the indies. They were built on the backs of these small promotions where it gets around, like you said, promoters talk, right? And and even on the other end, where like if you don't have a big head and you're willing to play ball at that level, hey man, like you're gonna catch somebody on the way up the same way you catch somebody on the way down.
That's it.
And my biggest thing is like the one thing we didn't talk about as much that I'm pretty big on, just because I see independent wrestlers not taking advantage of it, and this is the Cardona model, merch. They come out to these shows. They have like no sizes. They have like the most basic T-shirt they probably built off like a customization website. Like, hey, hire a designer, give them $500, design you a nice shirt. You'll make your money back in a couple of shirts first. Boom, there you got a logo. You got a design. You can put on your tights. There's so many missed opportunities when it comes from just simple merchandising. Yeah. And I think that's what gets me when I see release wrestlers, like just invest a little bit.
The first thing I would do, first off, if I was any of them, I'd do exactly what you do. Let's say I don't want to spend a lot of money. I jump on Fiverr, I find me a designer, boom, get me somebody. I'd have merch on Pro Wrestling Tees.
Yeah.
And I would do what Bruce Pritchard did. Order a T-shirt. I will call you.
Yeah.
And because they made so much stupid money, that they had to stop.
That made me buy a shirt.
Yeah. Because, and the thing is, what does that do? Is one, it's building relationship, it's building loyalty, but it's putting a brand on thousands of people. And people may be like, "Oh, I got to talk to these people." You ain't got nothing else to do.
Right.
Except work out.
You can call them any time of the day, like whatever.
Nobody said you had to call them.
Literally your life. This is your livelihood.
Yeah.
And it's just like, man, and then do another T-shirt, and then do a different design, then do a different design, and I will call you for every single one. If you buy 4 different shirts, and I call Adrian 4 different times, whatever, you bought 4 different shirts.
It's WrestleCon all year round, 100%. Essentially.
Yeah.
I mean, the hustle's there if they're willing to do it, and I think some of them will. I really do.
Yeah. I think that's a good point. Well, that's a good segue to get into we're going to look at a couple of segments for tonight. And again, our topic is future endeavored. And there's been so many folks that have been future endeavored over the years, over the decades, if you will. But I'm going to start with someone that is in more recent memory, per se. Someone that actually was released by WWE or came up to some agreement of being released. He was only in NXT. And this actually comes from DEFY in the Pacific Northwest, which is a pretty well known independent in its own right. This is Shane Strickland as he made his return to the independents and
Anniversary.
DEFY.
Incredible shock as Shane Strickland returns on February 26th against Nick Wayne. Once again, Washington Hall is Swerve's house.
First off, next time you refer to me, you're going to say Swerve. There is no Shane Strickland here. Now, we're going to talk about February 26th, Nick Wayne. Why am I here? Why did I challenge Nick Wayne? Why do you think I did? Why do you think I challenged Nick Wayne? That's all I heard about, because that's all I could hear about while I was off doing my thing. I hear Nick Wayne's name traveling all around the country, and he's claiming DEFY. That's cool. Truth be told, Nick Wayne is doing this at a faster rate, at a younger pace than I've ever seen done before. That's very special. But he's claiming he's DEFY. No. Nick, baby, boy, Swerve is DEFY. And as far as that championship match you had with Christopher Daniels, great job. But I mean more than that championship will ever mean. So you're not just taking on Swerve. You're not just taking on DEFY. You're taking on the entire Pacific Northwest. And as soon as these 90 days are up, you're going to be taking on all of professional wrestling. Whose house? No. Whose industry? Swerve's industry.
Once Shane Strickland returns to his home area, his home region.
No, I loved it. It's pretty cool where he's cutting a promo before his 90 days are up. So you're building anticipation before you're even technically supposed to be seen on television or whatever the rules are, right? I think Swerve has done a he's done an awesome job of rebounding from being released from WWE.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you take your character, you take it from one perspective where you're leaving the company, and we look at you in a certain light, a certain level. And he took his release and basically used it as fuel and motivation to upgrade and become essentially a top guy that we see in AEW. And I got to give him props for that, because, you know, we've seen plenty of people get cut by the Fed, by WWE, and just disappear.
Mm-hmm.
Or just fade away. But he didn't do that. And what's even better about that is the first place he went after leaving WWE was back home, DEFY.
Yeah.
Go back to where everyone knows your name, loves you, and wants to support you, and you build from there. You're really setting a foundation. So that was a smart move. And salute to him.
Yeah. Greg, what do you think about choosing DEFY as his return place without even wrestling at this point?
I think it's great. I think it's a perfect segue. It's rough to be released. Any of us who have ever been released from a job, for laid off or whatever, is rough. So going back to DEFY is comfortable. You go back to familiar surroundings, familiar talent, and know that, and familiar fans. So I can now when you get laid off, confidence gets shook. So being able to go there, and you could see his confidence was there. If I felt that he felt good, I would not have known that's his first promo after a release. A lot of times it's just bitter. Somebody who come across bitter. upset, whatever. It wasn't. There was no mention outside of there is no more Shane at Swerve. That's it. In the 90-day thing. But that was it, right? And it was, I'm here, I'm back, basically. Defy it. I'm Defy. And I took it as him reclaiming what was his territory.
Right.
But you can only do that because you were there, and that confidence has to be there.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like going back home, you build that confidence. Now I get that confidence back. I know what's going to work. These people behind me, I can start to build my brand. Now I can branch out. I think it was genius.
To that end, we're talking about coming back to your home territory, right? Effectively.
Mm-hmm.
This is a guy that I've been following. I know he had a career before Kill Shot, and he was deathmatch guy. But for me, as seen up close in the mask, and he has he created a whole backstory for Kill Shot in Lucha Underground, making his rise, and now he's on the way back, right? But like you guys said, he's not choosing any indie, right? Even if this wasn't his home indie, this is a known. For me, this is one of the spiritual successors to PWG.
Absolutely.
Because it's not some random indie that you're gonna kind of forget about. They're on a terrible feed that is glitching out. This is well produced.
Mm-hmm.
They bring in great talent. That's actively on the scene. Maybe some of them are even signed to active contracts. So he is positioning himself still as a star within the scope of independent wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
And letting us not forget, while giving some shine to Darby Allin at the time, who was on the come up, right? Who's like kind of, he's establishing himself. He's created this name and saying, you're still not it, son. You're not, you ain't it. I'm coming back to reclaim what my place in this industry. And that the word industry, right? He makes it very clear that we're seeing a Swerve that portrays himself at this professional level, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's been to the top, he's been to the Fed, and now he's gonna bring that knowledge, that experience back to you, probably beating up Darby Allin eventually. But I think it's going to. I'm glad you mentioned that he doesn't bring up that past, even though he really easily could have, as we're actually going to touch on later tonight. But anyway, shout out to Swerve for the reinvention and for upholding, basically your convictions, because like we said, a lot of the times you flounder, like Adrian said, you might come out and you might have best laid plans and maybe the cards aren't quite there.
And was he cut around pandemic?
Oh, man, I don't remember exactly when.
I kind of think so. Yeah.
Yeah, says 3 years ago, February 2022. So maybe right after that, right after like full live crowds.
Okay.
Yeah.
Heard.
Yeah. Well, we are gonna stay on that vein of returning to your home territory of sorts, except we're gonna go across the pond to a place called ICW. And
nice.
This one's a little older. This one we're gonna go back a few years. In fact, we're gonna go back about a decade to an almost unrecognizable Drew McIntyre, or Drew Galloway, as he would be known mostly on his indie.
Welcome to recently in the Jericho podcast. I have looked at my awesome WWE TV. You've seen the numbers 13, 14. I've been preaching 13, 14. Now I'm going to tell you what it is. Have you heard the Bannock Bump? In 13, 14, the Scots fought the English for their freedom. We were outnumbered 3-1. The English laughed at the notion that we could possibly beat them. You're damn right, we kicked their asses and sent them back where they came. That's 13-14. We going after against the odds, becoming the biggest and best. It represents all of you who have a dream. And you're fighting the odds. People are laughing at you because you're thinking outside the box. You start a business, you're against the odds. Say up yours, 13-14. It represents Drew Galloway leading ICW forward and getting on television. That's 13-14.
Galloway coming back with this
This is
manifesto.
bloody incredible. I cannot believe how much this has grown. You're all part of a moment right now. I have goosebumps on my arms. If I wasn't sweating so much, it'd be everywhere. This is unbelievable.
The landscape has changed a lot from true leftists as he watched from afar.
Listen, one or two things to say. I'm so excited. Let's talk about what's best for business. Best for business. What makes a professional wrestler? They're tall they are. Look, their body, their in-ring work, their talking ability on the microphone, charisma. Yes, all these things make a marketable character, and that's what you need to be a real superstar. Once upon a time, before whatever happened, Vince McMahon was the ruthless man in the world, named me the chosen one for a reason. Trust me, I'm bringing those attributes here. When used right, was best for business. When I'm used to my best of my ability, I am the fucking business. God, I'm getting rolling, I'm getting fired up. Just stay with me 1 second and we'll get drunk. When I get drunk, oh my God, I become a better lover and an even better dancer, trust me. So if I'm going to be the business, let the business cash you a reality check. That's what I did there. Let's talk about what I just did tonight. I took out the knack, the bad guys. Sent them packing. I have a problem with them. I'll explain it later. I also took out one of my best friends, Jack Jester. Trust me, I asked him to stop. When I was in America rising the ranks in WWE, he was here rising the ranks in Scotland. And I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry whatsoever. He will understand when he comes to. And I want what he's got. I need what he's got. What he has got. When I get this, when I get my hands on this, I can take ICW to the next level. I'm not a good guy. I'm not a bad guy. Drew Galloway is an entity. If I'm willing to do that to one of my best friends, what the hell will I do to everybody else?
A statement of intent
You
here.
see people texting, hope they're videoing, hope they're tweeting. I said you're part of a moment. This is a moment for professional wrestling, not just Scotland. This is going to go across the world. And I want you to tell everybody, tell someone in the street, tell your sister, tell them to tell their dog, to tell their cat, to tell their cousin. I don't care, put it out there. Right now, we're making a stand for professional wrestling. It doesn't have to be the machine. You started the movement, and I plan to get it to the next level. I'm Drew Galloway. Tell them I'm coming. Tell them ICW's coming, and tell them hell's coming with us. World, look into my eyes. When you see me on a show, when you see these fans, you know you've got the best in the damn world. We are ICW, and you're gonna know our name. Here we fucking go!
Was this the plan?
All right. I let the extended version. I was gonna cut it off earlier, but I think it was worthwhile to look at the whole thing. Greg, different time, different era. We're talking a decade ago. You see a little bit of the yes movement right there, kicking in at the beginning. Your thoughts, because now we have a fully realized Drew Galloway McIntyre. What are your thoughts on this particular promo?
I think similar to what we talked about with Swerve, he went to a comfortable environment. In an environment that he left before that's in a very different state than it was when it was before. But you could also tell he paid attention. And I've heard him talk about that promo, so I'm kind of biased towards what I've heard him say.
Yeah.
But he did not expect that reaction. And he got a better reaction than he expected, which I think threw off the promo, but made it genuine. So when I say threw it off, it kind of shook him to say, I'm going down a certain path, but wow, they really embraced me. So I kind of had to go back this way a little bit. Not to say he was going heelish, but like he embraced it, right?
Right.
And I think what you start to see is that reinvention beginning. You never heard this dude talk like that in WWE.
Mm.
You never heard it when he was the chosen one. You never, damn sure didn't hear it when he was part of the 3MB. But the other thing watching that promo is that reinvention didn't start there. Look at his body. Look at how different his body looks from when he left as a member of 3MB. And if that's 90 days, 120 days, whatever it is, he did some work.
Yeah.
And you can see it. You can see it through in his face. You can see it in his abs. You can see it in his cuts throughout his arms, everything. And I'm like, you can tell. And I believe that makes an impact on those fans. That says, it may be subliminal, but there's an impact that says, man, this dude's for real. He didn't show up out of shape. He didn't show up in the same shape. He showed up in arguably the best he's looked
Right.
since he's been a wrestler. And then you hear the true passion. It was not a clean promo. It was not smooth. It was kind of all over the place, but it was genuine.
Right.
And it was real. And he had those people with him, but he also closed it out the right way with their little ICW chant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He found the button.
So he knew exactly what he was doing. But I mean, I think that was a great way to set off, his journey back. And it was a huge surprise. I remember when that came out, it went viral quick.
Yeah. Yeah. No, we're talking about an era of like Grado, and then you got Drew, right? And that's ICW, no real nutshell.
Joe Hendry.
There. Joe Hendry,
That's
right.
He was over around the
He's
there.
The
That's
successor.
my first time seeing him. Yep.
Successor to Drew. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you're well versed in this too, Adrian. So, like, what are your thoughts, kind of being transported to that time, knowing this is a very different Drew, right? This is someone who's still trying to figure it out, but we still see glimpses of the Drew that we know today.
Definitely. I mean, it's one of those situations where Drew this is a perfect opportunity for Drew to show or present to the crowd, to wrestling fans, who he wants to portray. Because we got to think, months before, he was the third man on 3MB. That's what we saw. And whether you liked it because it was a joke, it's comedy, that sort of thing. You liked it because you knew those three guys were good wrestlers, but they're just saddled with this gimmick.
Right.
Or you just thought it was a joke and you didn't want to see it. That was a perception of Drew at that time. So this was a perfect opportunity, which brings us back to the very beginning of what we were talking about. That promo is your first opportunity to reestablish yourself to the fans. This is the Drew that, moving forward, I want you guys to know. Not 3MB Drew. Even though I'm going to acknowledge it. I'm going to acknowledge it because me not acknowledging it is kind of disingenuous. It's kind of insulting to those who consider me or consider themselves fans of me. So I'm going to acknowledge when I was a chosen one, because that was a major part of my career, my trajectory. 3MB, even though I may not have cared for it, I may have crapped on it on Jericho's podcast, that's a major part of my career. I'm going to acknowledge it. But right now, here and now, the guy that's standing talking to you guys, this is Drew. Now, one thing that I noticed from that clip, that was listed as Drew McIntyre return.
Yeah.
There's a reason why they put that. The algorithm is your friend. Them putting Drew Galloway wouldn't have gotten as much attention as his WWE branding. So even though that wasn't a part of the presentation of that promo and that moment, them choosing to title it like so only proves the drawing power, or just the fact that WWE is the big guy, the big name, and we're gonna go ahead and still try to attach ourselves somewhat to the big name in that company. Now, the last thing I got to say about this promo is, even though it kind of goes along with what I was saying when it's like, I kind of want to see some of these guys take a shot at their former employer. I think that was an example in some spots, but he was very smart about it. He wasn't over the top like, screw this company. There were shots at WWE Forward. Let's talk about what's best for business, in a snide way of saying those jackasses don't know what's best for business, because for the past couple years they've had me in this light. I am the business. Let me take what they just said, flip it, and say I am the business. That was a smart way of taking a shot at your former employer without just being completely salty. And I enjoyed that presentation of his promo.
What you just said made me think of the point Greg made earlier when he was talking about he's using Gunner obviously as an example of someone who knew, right, this is my move is this is going to be the rest of my life. This is my move to get a civilian job effectively, right?
Mm-hmm.
For a lot of these wrestlers like Drew here, this is that fork in the road. This is that turning point where he was given opportunities since like being 20 or however young he was, right? He was a kid. And now you're out in the open and you can either say, well, I had a great career, maybe there was some holes there, but you see some fire here, right?
Mm-hmm.
You see this passion that was never going to be born being part of 3MB, right? And admittedly, right, all three of them, they were happy to pick up a paycheck, right? Like, hey, you want to be on TV? You want me to do some goofy stuff and probably not take that many bumps? Great, but that ceiling was only going to be so high, right?
Mm-hmm.
You weren't suddenly. So this presents this opportunity for him because he comes back to this space, right? And like you said, he's speaking to the crowd. He's speaking about this, without getting too much into it, about the misgivings of the big company of WWE and how he was misused. But more than that, he comes back and says, I'm gonna take you on my back.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna go to the next level. Whatever ICW was, we haven't even reached the top of the mountain yet. But I'm here, and that had him eating out of out of his hands, because they understood, hey, you're in it. You're not just doing this appearance. You're gonna go off and back to America and probably work the indie circuit over there. It's like, no, I'm here for you. And what a great way to ingratiate yourselves to all the fans, because even those that were not over there, but hey, man, I can see the passion. I'm buying in, and I'm gonna buy a ticket to the next time you're in town. Which
definitely,
that built it out. But clearly someone who's a student of the game, because later we know that this dude watched everything, right? Even to the point now where he references things that are like, oh, you're watching that, you know about that. That dude lives on his phone sometimes, probably.
Well, one thing that jumped out at me as you were saying that, one of the things we talk about with the art of the promo is you build yourself up, but you build your opponent up.
Definitely.
Right? Because you want to make it look as though if I beat you, I beat somebody.
Yeah.
And if I lost to somebody, because now I don't lose a lot. Both of these promos we've watched so far raise the level of the organizations they stepped into.
Absolutely.
Without downing somebody else. Because the big issue to me, and this is across all industries, number one doesn't punch down. Number 2, 3, 4, 5 punches up. And if you can avoid punching up, and you have your people, your stars come in and not have to punch up, it automatically elevates you. Pepsi always punches at Coke. Burger King always punches at McDonald's. But you don't see McDonald's punching back because they don't have to. AEW punches at WWE. You don't see WWE truly punch back. and they made little things, but nothing like you see the promos and stuff
Not
like
on a
that.
weekly basis. Yeah.
Correct. And so it's like by him standing up there not blasting WWE and using that whole time, he built up ICW.
Mm-hmm.
That's what he did.
Yep.
And Swerve did the same thing. Basically, Swerve said, I'm here back in DEFY. And he didn't even say back. And he was basically like, I'm in DEFY. Not back, because sometimes I'm back means I've come back for whatever reason. Well, why did he come back? See, there's a subliminal that says, why did you come back?
Mm-hmm.
Neither one of these said, I'm back. These both said, I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a difference in that psychology. And I believe that both of them were very strategic in that we're going to build up where I'm at. So now I've raised their level, which if I raise the promotions level, I automatically raise mine. But I didn't just raise
Immediately.
mine, I raised everybody around me. And I think that is
This
a
is true.
big piece of both of these promos.
Yep. Yeah. Hey man, I'm all about it and raising the stock of one. I know DeFi started traveling south. They came to LA and they did pretty good business.
Nice.
You know, they did really good business for a company that really is only online. You know, for a lot of folks. But great points, gentlemen. You know, the stories of coming back to your home territory and rising, right? Rising with the company along as you are picking yourself up. Well, we've talked a lot about, not, bad naming the other company you just got fired them up, but to turn that on its head, because we're about to look at probably the most famous post-release promo of all time, including probably the biggest superstar of all time that probably breaks all the rules. Let's look at Stone Cold, because we can't have this conversation without looking at his ECW promo. So we're going to take a look at that right here. I'm going to play a little piece of it because we've all seen it. I'm sure the listeners here have seen it. If you haven't, you should really seek it out. We're going to put it in the show notes here. We're going to pick it up where he gets into talking a little bit about how WCW wasn't quite the right place to work for.
As long as Big Ted kept sending in the checks, maybe I wasn't happy with what was going on, but I became complacent. Then they send me to Japan, the big injury. Bischoff delivers a shot heard around the damn world. Steve Austin's out of the high-paying job. All of a sudden, the phone starts ringing off the hook. It's ECW. It's the WWF. It's All Japan. It's New Japan. And all Steve Austin's got to do is make a decision. Todd Gordon, whether he mortgaged his house one time, two times, maybe three times, came up with the right figure for Steve Austin to make a decision. I stroll into the ECW arena. It's the biggest piece of crap I've ever seen. I broke in a building called the Sportatorium in Dallas, Texas, home of the world-famous Von Erichs. Anybody that was anybody stepped foot in the Dallas Sportatorium. For the last 2 years, all you've heard about anywhere in wrestling is the famous ECW arena. Debut night, I roll in. You've got the Sandman. You've got the Raven. You got the Pit Bulls. You got Stevie Richards. You got the Public Enemy. You got the Gangsters. You got Mikey Whitcrap, whatever the hell his name is. You got a bunch of damn misfits running around thinking that they can actually wrestle. All I've seen in ECW is a bunch of violent crap. And that's exactly what I'll call it, because that's what it is. Steve Austin is here to wrestle. It's what I do best. It's what I do better than anybody in the world. Dean Malenko, Eddie Guerrero, they got the big send-off. Tears were in everybody's eyes. It was a big deal. All Steve Austin got was a good swift kick in the ass as Bischoff hung up the phone and left me high and dry.
There's a lot to unpack here because he ain't just ragging on his ex-employer. He's ragging on his current employer.
No, for sure, for sure. No, he's the key, like we've said before, the key when it comes to your first promo with the new company is you're reestablishing a character. You're reestablishing a direction for the fans to actually perceive you. And Steve's promo is establishing himself as a big douchebag. As someone for, if you're an ECW, like let's say if you're an ECW fan, you're a hardcore ECW fan. I don't know many casual ECW fans. That's a very, very unique fan base for a lot of us during the time. So if you got a guy coming in and crapping on not only the venue, saying the ECW arena, I was in the sports authority. You know, I was actually somewhere that mattered. This place, piece of trash. Then you start naming some of the guys that everyone's super excited for. We've seen the pops to this day, weeks ago, the pops for Sandman. Like people would lose their crap over there for Sandman. Mikey, come on, man. Like these are guys that all of the ECW fans cherish and love. They're showing up for these guys. And you have this guy coming over and saying, the arena's trash. These guys walking around are trash. I'm here to wrestle. And that's establishing him as someone that I want to boo. I want to see Sandman kick his ass.
Yeah.
If I'm an ECW fan, seeing that. Like I want to see someone just, I want to see him eat his words. And that's a great thing. That just give credit to Steve for a promo like that. He's establishing himself as a heel, and that's a great counter to the two promos that we've seen before, essentially, where these guys, the first two, are respectful of their potential opponents. They're respectful of the promotion. This one, he's like, screw this place and screw all these guys.
Right.
You know?
But an old school take, right? Because he knows how to pick at the bear and know that he's going to get a response eventually.
For sure.
Greg, he talks to our hearts by mentioning the Sportatorium and knowing who he came from, where he came from. Tell me more about how what you think about this promo, just kind of as on its own. Let's disregard what eventually happens. Let's just look at it for what it is.
I think we had the only thing we got to put it in a time capsule, because at the time, no internet, or very little, right? No social media. When I say very little, wasn't like nothing like it is today, right? We all knew he got released and ECW is a different fan base. So by blasting Eric Bischoff in WCW, but really Eric, he endeared himself right away to that fan base, because that fan base was the rebellion, 100%. Endears it, and then to Adrian's point, reinvents himself. But the reinvention started prior to him getting on that camera. Look at him as Stunning Steve. There wasn't no baseball cap. It was always a robe. It was Ric Flair light. It was that's what he was. I mean, exactly. So he gets here, he talks about ECW, then he blasts them. So he's like, okay, I'm gonna endear myself to you because we all hate WCW. And so he endears himself, then he flips it and says, I'm here to wrestle. Almost what Mick Foley did later when he became the anti-hardcore.
That's right.
All it is violence. I'm here to wrestle. And then who did he put down? Guerrero. Malenko. And I'm like, bro. And then, but what's funny is I'm actually going through this with them. I'm thinking, dude was good wrestler. He was never a brawler until Owen dumped him on his head. And you think about how he's doing this promo, you see so many flashes of what is to come. But to me, up to that point, it was one of the best promos. But the funniest thing he said was talking about the 2300 ECW arena being a hellhole, and talking about he came from the Sportatorium where everything met. Sportatorium was a POS. And so I'm like, worse than 2300. And I'm like, oh, that's hilarious. But he's playing it off of, I'm better than you. I'm better than this place. I'm better. But he's not saying I'm better because of WCW. And I think that was a huge piece of it. He said, I'm better because I'm a better wrestler than any of these people. And he blasted. He said that none of them could wrestle. And the two he did that could wrestle are gone anyway. So I thought this was a very genius promo. Again, something where you can see he's not overly comfortable in his skin yet. It's funny when you started to set this up, I was expecting the Monday NyQuil promo when he had the wig on his head. But this one I thought was a better one to analyze because this was a little bit more in character, foreshadowing, because you see some of the past, you see some of the future. There was one part when he started saying 1, 2, and I wanted to start yelling, what?
Say what?
Right.
But you just see those flashes in there, and it's just like, it's cool to see it. But this is a good one, especially in the time capsule, as to what happened at the time, some bitterness, allowing him to talk, and just endearing himself to that ECW crowd because it was different. Would that promo work today? And that's my question to both of y'all. Would that promo in today's world with social media, what would the IWC do today? So, Adelide, I'm going to ask you that one.
Man, I think they'd eat it up, man. I really think they'd eat it up just because, like you said, he goes in, he knows the players, he names everybody, right? There's a clear expectation. He knows what he's getting himself into, but you called it. There's these little nuances of him being a delusional heel, right? The comparison to the Sportatorium, to the 2300, to the idea that, okay, maybe at the time he was a better wrestler, comparing himself to a Malenko and a Guerrero. But there's all these elements of just being delusional, like, and I'm here to be a wrestler. And it's like, well, dude, you just came back from the other side and you weren't exactly, you weren't exactly at the top there, buddy. So I really think it still work today. If you interchange the names, I mean, and then like you still got, you got the baseball cap on, which it gives us this air of, okay, now we're talking to a different dude, right? This isn't Stunning Steve. This is not the same guy. But still with the air of, hey, you're a character, and we get that. You're not insulting our intelligence. But once again, the through line here for all the three promos tonight being, it is serving a purpose through the vehicle of the promo, not through a match, not through an entrance, not through any of that. Simply through a promo to say, this is who I am now, and I hope you're on for the ride. Whether I'm asking you directly or indirectly. This is a little more indirect, But I'd like to believe that, at the time everybody was right on, at least for those people that were watching at the time.
Yeah, for sure.
Adrian, what do you think just think about that context, and I'm going to ask you a little bit different. Would that promo work today had he been released from WWE going to AEW? Or you can't go vice versa. You have to go big boy to a bit smaller.
No, I think it would have made an immediate, like a big splash immediately. But just like any other, we've seen the cycle before. At least talking not for Steve Austin, not for anything like that. I'm talking for this current crop. We've seen that cycle. Release from WWE, you go to AEW, and there's a buzz, and then we don't know where it goes. And more often than not, and again, we're not going to use the next 2 minutes to crap on AEW and booking and all that, but normally it lands flat for some reason. And I think in that case, it would be an immediate buzz within the IWC. It would get over with us. We would be interested. And then 9 times out of 10, it's going to fall flat because after whatever match they have set up, he's just going to fall flat with everyone else. Not through his own fault, but because Tony has
Fair point.
Yeah, Tony wouldn't have any idea to really
follow through to it.
Follow up with something, you know.
Well, I think there's a
Which is
follow up, and
unfortunate.
I'm not going to totally blast Tony on this one. I think this is a situation where if you took that promo, and I'm excited a little bit with Out of Lead on this, but if you took that promo and did the AEW, which is why I asked it, it's harder to do because of the players there.
Okay.
Because of the wrestlers. And because of there's a passionate fan base, but it's not a cult. ECW was a cult.
I don't know, Greg.
It's not as bad as ECW. No, ECW was a cult. AEW are delusional. ECW was a cult because ECW was us against them. ECW was, and what I'm saying is like ECW was it was just different. And AEW has there's some stuff there, right? I think this promo would work if he went to a GCW.
Okay.
So you put him in that context. Because they are different fans. And I know AEW has their fans, they're passionate and great.
Yeah.
God bless them for it. But my difference is the ECW was a cult. I mean, they follow Paul Heyman everywhere. I don't hear AEW. I hear a lot of AEW fans who don't like Tony Khan, but they love the wrestlers and they love a lot of other stuff. I never heard an ECW fan not like Paul Heyman. Like he was like he had them all drinking the Kool-Aid. I'm there. I was one of them. So I was, but it was like, I just think that promo works perfectly in a GCW type of ring where he could stand in there and call out a couple of people and compare himself to that. Whereas I think in AEW it's harder to do because of the talent, because of the depth, and because of even that ECW had, these are our people. Mikey Whipwreck was ours. Sandman is ours. Raven is ours. I mean, to this day, people will talk about Jericho being an ECW guy, and I'm like, Jericho was there for like 6 months.
Right.
I mean, it was like, and it's like it, but because they owned him, and I don't see that. That's why I say there's a difference between the two
It
fan
was
bases.
lightning in a bottle, man. But you're
It
right.
was.
It was everybody who set foot there had some claim to having an identity. Right? We're talking about rabid fans, this raw atmosphere, which I can see how you can make the comparison to GCW. But he was part of that for a blink. For a blink, he was part of that, and that's part of his story. But yeah, I mean, let's think about that. Let's contextualize it now with these new releases. We talked in the beginning. There is precedent, right? There is a blueprint, and you can pick whichever blueprint you want. You can mishmash it together. But the fact of the matter is, what's clear here is there's passion on these people, and there's clearly a plan, right? You can see it, the gears turning behind the eyes. This isn't a one and done promo. Not even Austin's, who kind of lived on its own, and then he had he had to work to get to where he eventually gets to. But there's clarity in saying, this isn't it for me, right? And I'm inviting you on for the ride. I want you to be part of this experience. And I think that's what's valuable for this new crop, to say, this is a different atmosphere right now. We're dominated by social media. It's a minute to minute world. We're not talking about waiting for a pay-per-view. This is now. This is today. Right. What does it look like in the modern sense to do a promo like this? Because like you said, it's what have you done for me lately? And a cool 30-second, 2-minute promo, great. It might get a buzz on social media, and then what? Right. What are you going to do to build on? And I think that's the challenge for this new crop that maybe in the past you didn't really have the same way.
So let me ask you guys something that I thought about. Just from and it's from a promo standpoint. I'm picturing it, but it kind of came out of the ECW thought. Adrian, you just called them misfits, right? That's what ECW was.
Yeah.
What if some of these releases? I'm gonna throw a few names. Shayna. Let's say Shayna, Dakota, Cora, and Braun
Mm-hmm.
band together and go somewhere together. They may have to sacrifice money. Say, take us all. Let us come in. We'll call ourselves the Misfits from the island of Misfit Toys, basically,
Mm.
and just come in and run roughshod on people. They don't have to even, don't acknowledge, don't act like you're WWE, don't act like you're NWO, not that type of thing.
Mm.
Almost like that, what was it called? Retribution or whatever that thing was that we had
Yeah.
during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Almost that type of a thing, but come in knowing who you are and just run freaking roughshod on somebody.
Mm.
I mean, that would be something different.
Yep.
Because, like, they've kind of followed Cardona did the GCW thing, Jericho did the GCW thing, Jinder showed up. That's kind of become, oh, let me go there and get some credibility.
Right.
What if? I mean, that would just be so cool to me. Like, let them just go off and be like, oh, we're going to show you that we are this industry. Kind of stealing from what Swerve said in his that you showed tonight. And, man, I would just love to see something different like that. And maybe, I think one of the big things to this going back, because we know Swerve going to DEFY, you're taking a pay cut, right? Drew going back, Steve going, they're all taking, well, you say pay cuts actually, but they're not really pay cuts because if you're not making money, it's not a pay cut. You got to put that in perspective.
That's true.
So if
That's
your
true.
income is zero, it's not a pay cut, but
Not the
it's
same.
less money than what they were used to during their contract time.
Mm.
And
I mean,
sometimes you have to take that risk in business
yeah.
to lose money to make money.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the strategy that some of these guys should go with is go, my asking price is 1,000. Hey, you know what? Just fly me. I don't, nothing else.
Mm.
Or don't even fly me. I have enough frequent flyer miles. I'll come. I want time on your show and do these different things. And if you put together like a little package like that,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and you showed yourself as a faction and you were good, like a Shayna, a Cora, and a Dakota, take out Braun. Those three together,
Mm-hmm.
if they get along, if they could do it, oh, that would be priceless.
Yeah. No, that is a really good idea. The biggest obstacle with that would definitely be ego, because
Yeah.
all three of those women competitors are essentially three different types of entertainers within professional wrestling. And I think someone like Shayna has like a higher demand in other realms. Whether she goes to Japan, she's gonna demand more in Japan versus a Cora Jade, who is considered at this level, or even Dakota Kai at a certain level. But yeah, that would be awesome. That would be pretty cool. And it's ideas like that that create the buzz for WWE to look and say, what the hell were we doing? Let's go ahead and call them up and
Yep.
bring this act right back over here because of the buzz. So yeah.
But going back to what you just said is there may be demand for Shayna, but I think the key is going back to what we talked about earlier. What is your goal?
Mm-hmm.
Is your goal to go experience these things? MVP. Go to Japan, do these other things? Or is your goal to get back to WWE? If your goal is to get back, then you sacrifice certain pieces. Or you say, hey, I'm going to Japan, because let's face it, GCW ain't running 7 days a week. MLW is not running 7 days a week. You could space yourself out. But in all
Definitely.
honesty, I would stay away from TNA right now. Just because they have that relationship with WWE. Let me recreate myself somewhere totally
Right.
different. And I would stay away from AEW for the time being, just so I could recreate myself outside of that. Create a buzz. If I can create a buzz, now I create demand. If I can create demand, now I improve my financial
Right.
situation.
It's wild times we're living in,
Yeah.
because never did I hear the thought, if you want to go back, you're going to have to stay away from some major companies there, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
by association, you're kind of stuck with TNA and being second tier to WWE and effectively a feeder system now. And AEW, it's a crapshoot. You could have some success, but more often than not, you're probably going to be a little bit truncated.
Mm-hmm.
Great thoughts, guys. I mean, I really appreciate it, because again, we're looking at also people's livelihoods, and as much as we're fans and we're looking at it as a show, this is what these people gave their bodies and their lives to, and I do want to see them all succeed in their own right. So
Definitely.
so shout out to
Quick
all.
question. Quick question to each of y'all, because we talked about these, and I know this is not the promo. Who is the most shocked person on that list that you were like, whoa, they got released? Adelie, I'm coming to you first.
For me, to be really honest with you, probably Cora Jade. I thought she was a lock to be in there for years to come.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, especially like the homegrown story and being a kid and being kind of one of that crop of that was inspired by the kind of upper echelon of the women's revolution and whatnot. So that one really surprised me, just because of how much they'd invested in her at that point. And she's young, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which isn't to say she can't be back at some point.
Yeah. I want to initially say Braun, just because we've all seen him on weekly television, like at a consistent level. And it's one thing where it's not that many big men in professional wrestling. Like, that's a commodity. You're a big dude, and even though we've all seen how you walk around or whatnot, you're still a big dude. There's always a market. Hell, how long did we have Big Show on WWE television struggling to walk around? Andre struggling to walk around. Like, being a big man, that's one of those things. But instead of saying Braun, for me, I'm gonna say Eddie Thorpe, just because as a NXT viewer, he was being put in situations of being considered in the top of the card. Like, his interactions, he challenged for the NXT title multiple times. He was interacting with the top of the card. He was the issue between Trick Williams and Obafemi. And hell, he put hands on Shawn Michaels. Like, that means something, at least in my opinion. I don't see it being a smart decision to have him be so involved with those people that we consider to be top of a company, just to release him right around the corner. Like, he was literally the surprise for me, because I thought he was doing good work at NXT. That was my surprise. The others made sense because of injuries. Like Cora Jade, Dakota Kai, they're solid wrestlers. They make sense on television, but injuries, man, like your best ability is your availability. It comes down to that. Like, if I can only depend on you for being available a quarter of the year, then I probably don't need to be depending on you,
Yeah. Greg, how about you? Who was that surprise for you?
Mine was Cora. Cora was definitely the one that pops out at me the most. I'm a big Cora fan, but I mean, without jumping into a whole bunch of rumors and stuff, I think it could force her to reinvent herself.
You're not her only fan.
No, no. But I think she has the biggest upside too. And I think if she, because we know she was a fan and all that, I think if she digs in deep and really goes for it, she could come back a totally different person.
That's a good point.
Because I saw a few comments she made, and I'm like, I could read between the lines and see why she was released, in my opinion.
That's what I've heard. Yeah, I don't know. She's young. She's young.
She's
She's
young,
That's
but
where.
I mean,
Yeah, she's young.
one thing she said was talking about I have to go work out outside of the performance. And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, I have a kid who plays volleyball. She practices with her volleyball team multiple times a week. Guess what else? We have to leave and go do workouts, and you have to go get training elsewhere. You can't just rely on that. And I think if you're going to be a world class athlete, which these guys and girls are, if you're at that level, you are world class athletes, and you got to train like a world class athlete. I think you got to learn that part.
I don't know, for this scrub, none of them will surprise me if they're back, because this whole crop seems so passionate about the business. Like, I don't think there's anybody that's gonna be like, well, no, I gave it a fair shot. I think they all have it in their blood, and I don't think it's something that's gonna go away easily at all. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much. It's been a great conversation, and again, we talked about the blueprint, and we're talking about this next generation, and wish the best. So those that are recently future endeavored, and we're going to see you back on top. We're going to see you back, because you are going to be the ones that make it work. And if you listen to anything that we said tonight, I mean, clearly there's a way back if that's what you want. So from us here, this is Talk 'em Into the Building, a pro wrestling podcast where we focus specifically on the pro wrestling promo. As always, joined by Adrian and Greg on the East Coast. This is Ali on the West Coast. Check us out, intothebuilding.com. That's intothebuilding.com. If you like, comment, give us a follow. Do what you need to do here on the socials. If you like this and you like this conversations, go back, check out the back catalog. We got over a year's worth of conversations that range from the funny to the serious to the historical. Check us out, intothebuilding.com. But for now, we'll see you next time on Talking Into the Building.